All right, we are live. Welcome to the 11th AmeriCanaries Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Katz, and we have a very, very special guest with us today, the chairman of the Canaries Trust, and he's now a year older than he was Friday. Exactly a year old. So celebrated a birthday, and I guess the club knew that he had a birthday and decided, let's treat Robin to a nice win here. We'll have a crafty own goal, and then Adam Ida, whose name is mispronounced constantly by people in the media, scored a nice goal. Joining us, we have Mark Foster, founder of AmeriCanaries, and Mark has a little bit of news that Robin knows about. We'll talk about that later. And Jeff Hewick, our South Carolina Canary and our sticker guru. We're working on a flag and whatever. So, as you know, Norwich won on Saturday, which is pretty nice. So, I was fairly happy. So, but before we get into that, I'd like to give the forum over to Robin a little bit. So, for those of you who don't know, Robin is the chairman of the Canaries Trust. Pull up a little bit of the bio he is here. Robin also played football for quite a few years as a striker and scored over 200 goals, which is quite impressive because I think three of us have scored zero. 0 goals. I didn't even play, youth soccer. My son, who played it 1 year, God, I think one game he scored 4 or 2 for the other team, because they're like 6-year-olds. Something like that.
They all count, Ken. They all count.
Yeah. So he spent 13 years as a manager. So Robin knows a little bit about, running a club in the Eastern Counties League, which I'll have to do a little bit of research to know. But I know. What level is that, Robin?
It's now called the Thurlow Nunn League. I think it's changed its name so many times over the years, and I don't understand the levels now. It's about. No, I don't know. I wouldn't even like to speculate. It's semi-pro, but at the towards the bottom end of the semi-pro leagues. Certainly a long way below the likes of Kings Lynn, which is one of my old clubs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a decent level of football. You get some decent players in there. But yeah, I know a great deal about being abused, which is quite handy in my current role. So.
Well, and speaking of Robin's current role, he joined the trust in 2013 and somehow convinced them to make him chair at the end of 2014. So, he either impressed the people there or, I don't know, extorted them. I'm not sure. I doubt it's extorting. And Robin also...
concealed weapons involved, Ken.
Weapons involved?
A lot of concealed weapons, yeah.
Nunchucks, spears,
anything, yeah.
Anything. And for those of you who have seen Robin's Twitter bio, he is a graduate of Cambridge. It says a Cambridge history graduate, which is impressive. We just have multiple degrees here from public institutions. I'm sure where your degrees are from, Jeff.
Penn State.
I won't hold that against you, Jeff. I'll make pretend I didn't hear that.
I'm not worried about you accepting it, Ken.
I'll make pretend I did not hear that. We're making an exception. Oh, he's got the Penn State mug too. My God, I don't know about that. My Maryland stuff is elsewhere in the room here. I'm using the Premier League in the morning mug that I got, which is kind of nice. Not from being on Fan Zone, it was just a Twitter thing where I just happened to luck out and get it on Twitter. which was nice. It's like, oh, okay. And they send stickers too, so you get a variety of cute little stickers. So, Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about what the trust does and how you have transformed the trust from what it was from once you got there? Because I know there's a lot, you're involved in a lot of very interesting areas. I myself am trying to do something similar with the Baltimore Orioles. Can't do a supporters trust because you can't buy stock in the team. You can't own stock in the team. So I'm trying to model what I'm doing based on some of what you're doing. It's very much at the nascent stage, but when I get it out there, it's very much modeled on what you guys are doing.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I mean, first of all, just let me make it clear, I haven't transformed the trust. A lot of people have put a lot of work into transforming the trust. But yeah, I mean, basically, the trust was formed at the start of the century, and initially it was intended to provide support to the club, and also to buy shares in the club, which were then held in trust for the fans. So it was quite limited. What's actually happened over the last 10 years is that we've developed what the trust is involved in to a very, very large degree. Whereas before the trust was quite inward looking, it was very much Norwich City focused and nothing else. We've gone completely the other way, so we have a strong relationship with the FSA, the Football Supporters Association. Campaigns like Her Game Too, which is intended to promote the women's game. We've also got a strong relationship with Proud Canaries, the LBGT group. And we have one of their committee members on our board. We've developed a mental health arm, which has given a lot of help and support to people during the pandemic, because obviously, there've been issues of isolation and so on. We've developed a very, very strong representation of the women's game ourselves as well. So there's a lot of things that are going on. We also have one of our board members is highly qualified in health and safety, and he's doing a tremendous amount of work with the club in terms of ground safety, ground improvements. He does a lot of what we call secret shopper trips, whereby he goes to different parts of the ground and observes what goes on and reports back with suggestions on how things can be improved. So there is a lot going on, and also of course safe standing, which is something that we're going to sit down with the club and talk about next week. Has been a campaign that we've been heavily involved with, and in fact about 3 years ago now, I went down with various people from the club, like Ed Balls and Andy Backley, who's the stadium manager, to meet with the lady called Tracy Crouch, who is the person who's just written the report that's been published on how the game can move forward, how we can get away from all the money issues that are dragging the game down, with clubs getting into ridiculous levels of debt. She was actually the sports minister at the time, and we went down and had a meeting with her, which was looking promising until she then resigned 6 months later. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we're involved with, and obviously we're still buying shares. We're now the 11th largest shareholder in the club, which and we're hoping to within the next year or so be the 10th.
Oh yeah, I muted your mic for a second, Mark. All right.
Lunch.
Are we all coming around for the barbecue, Mark?
Yeah, Mark's having a barbecue, man. We're getting wind warnings here. So even though it's
that was us the other day.
even though, let's see, it says it's 37 degrees, which is a lot warmer than it was over the weekend. I'm just not going out because, like wind warnings, I don't have to go anywhere right now. Okay. I did chuckle a little bit when you said you're going to sit down with the club to talk about safe standing. I thought that was a kind of a unintentionally funny statement. Now, for safe standing, where would that occur in Carrow Road? And I have to say, I'm not as familiar. When people talk about this stand, or whatever, I honestly don't know what they're talking about. When they talk about different areas versus we're used to, we're in this section or that section, the numbered section. Everything has like a different name. So what part of the stands would that occur in?
It would be in the lower Berkeley. The Berkeley stand is the stand that's regarded as the most passionate, along with the Snake Pit, which is in the corner next to the Berkeley stand. But yes, it would be the lower Berkeley that would be converted to safe standing. And I say if, hopefully will be converted.
Is that behind one of the goals?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, basically the four stands, you have the city stand on one side, you have the south stand on the other one, which is named after Sir Arthur South, who was a long-time chairman of the club. And then at each end, you have the Berkeley end, and you have the river end, which surprisingly has got a river behind it.
So which side has a tunnel where the players come out and where the benches are?
That's the city stand.
Okay.
Yeah, the city stand is the least impressive of the stands. It's one of the oldest, and it's a single story stand. One day when the ground is extended, I think the first thing that they'll do is knock down the city stand and build a two-tier stand there. And in fact, there have been steps taken towards that. When Ben Kensel was here, he bought 2 parcels of land which would actually give us room to develop that stand.
There you go. Is that similar to what Fulham have? Because the Fulham have like the one stand that's really old and kind of neat looking, and then the rest is built up. Is that similar to what they have?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, Fulham are developing their ground. I think at the moment, I think they have put one new stand in since I was last there. But the away stand at Fulham is very, very scary because it moves.
Okay.
If you get lots of people standing up and jumping, you can actually feel the stand move because it's sort of hollow underneath. It's very strange.
I know some high school stadiums like that.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, as someone with an engineering degree, they're supposed to move. To some aspect, the stands are supposed to, be able to move.
Not as much as this, though.
This is true. Did not know. Yeah, Fulham's an interesting ground because Fulham is just like a weird club to me. It's like, okay, what does Fulham have? Well, they're in London. They have that cool building, on the right by the Thames, but I don't know what else. It's trying to figure out like what is Fulham. Well, there's like 2 things. There's some other clubs that are just like, I don't know what their image is. Like, what are they? What are they?
Their identity.
Yeah. Like, what are they about? Like, what are they known for? And certain clubs you can say, okay, they're known for X, Y, and Z. Fulham, I'm like, I don't know. Dempsey played there. It's one of those that, other than beating Norwich at times, so you don't want them to beat Norwich. I like the Norwich's bogey club.
They always beat Norwich. Yeah. I mean, Fulham are like an awful lot of clubs in England in the sense that they've got a very, very impressive past, but it hasn't really been matched too much in recent years. I mean, if you go back to the 50s and 60s, Fulham were a big club and had some big players at the time, people like Johnny Haynes. and Bobby Moore ended his career at Fulham as well after he left West Ham. But yeah, they are slightly unfashionable, although they do play in a very fashionable part of London. They're not that far from Chelsea. So, and I mean, Fulham, despite the fact that our record there is appalling, I think most Norwich fans would tell you that Fulham is actually one of the more enjoyable away trips because it's quite a good place to go to.
And it's being in London, it's easier to get to than.
Yeah, it's not too bad to get to. The only slight drawback is that it's in between two tube stations, and whichever one you go to, it's about a mile to the ground. So
gotcha.
It's a bit of a walk, but there were nice pubs on the way, so it's actually not too bad.
Gotcha. All right, and since we're talking about trust a little bit, Mark, would you like to share the news that you told us about this morning?
Yeah, I've received a very gracious invite from the trust to become. I'm not quite sure I totally understand the role because the word ambassador was used. There was a I think very English. What was the term? Almost like not ex officio, but I'm trying to think of what it was. What did Andrew call it? He called it a oh good Lord, scrolling up.
I can probably tell you.
Co-opted.
Yeah.
Co-opted member. Not quite sure what that means for y'all because y'all have some terms that we use for completely different reasons here and there. Like when you talk about turnover means something completely different to us than to you guys, for example. But co-opted, I wasn't quite sure what that meant, but apparently I have some sort of role representing international Canaries now with the trust.
Yeah, just to clarify. Yeah, just to clarify that, I think we're sort of working on the basis it's a sort of suck it and see situation in the sense that we haven't necessarily quite got our heads around how it's going to work, but we've been talking for some time about the need to have international presence as far as the trust board is concerned. And obviously, you know, Mark, you've been around for a long time and have had quite a lot of dealings with it. So you were an obvious person to get involved. And there are a couple of other people in different parts of us, one in South America and one in Italy, who we thought would also enhance what we're trying to do. But co-opted, certainly in the English sense, simply means not elected, because all of us are subject to election at the AGM, but we can add people to the board pending an AGM.
Gotcha.
So that's all it means. We've added you in between AGMs. But yeah, you know, we're very keen to make this work because you know, one thing that I've tried to do since I've been chairman is to make the trust board as diverse as possible. So we've got a whole range of people with different skills and different backgrounds. And as I say, if we can develop that internationally, then that's got to be good for everybody.
Well, it's great to be invited. You know, hopefully the time differential won't be too much of a problem.
Yeah,
we'll see how amused my classroom is when we have these 7 o'clock, 1 p.m. meetings.
Yeah,
but I did talk to Andy. We may at least anytime I go on roll that around to a more subdued class period, at least for this year. And of course, summers won't be a problem at all. Yeah, but look forward to it. Look forward to it.
Yeah, we did too. Yeah.
All right. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay, good. Because I've never done this with the headphones on. I'm getting a lot of fan noise, and I'm trying to dissipate that by talking through the headphones here. Yeah, I joke with Mark that he should schedule teacher planning time.
I try.
Yeah.
Yeah, last year wouldn't have been a problem because I was doing so much of my instruction online, and I could basically pick my hours. So, but this year, not so much. I have a more traditional schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave Mark the traditional Mazel Tov greeting, which it's kind of funny because I get a word of the day. It's like a subscription service you don't pay for. And it's like, and every week there's a theme. Today's word was Mazel. I was like, okay, the theme is words from Hebrew. So every week there's something, different. It's like once a year. Oh, Yiddish words. Okay, which of these, like, do I know all the normally? I know all these. So I'm like, it's perfect. Mark is, the founder, absolutely. And then we'll hopefully leverage his membership with the trust to build, our membership. Having you on will help. We're also
both ways.
Right. We're also hopefully going to be reaching out to some people in the media and have them on.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Right. It's a little harder because of the time difference. Because we're off today, for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Are you actually off, Jeff? Okay, Jeff's actually off. I'm as a federal employee, and Mark is a local government teacher. The teacher, and Jeff, who works for with the state of South Carolina medical system, so we're also works here. But getting people, from the media over in England would be a little tougher, to try and get them on.
I don't think that would be a problem, Ken, because it's 7:30 in the evening in England now, which is works fine for us. Mm-hmm. I'm sure people like Michael Bailey would be more than happy to get involved. In fact, I'm quite happy to sound him out for you if you
please do. Yeah. I know Jeff was trying to. I've reached out to certain people on Twitter. I've got nothing back so far.
Really?
And these are. Well, I'm shooting, as my son says, shooters got to shoot. So
He's aiming pretty high.
Yeah. And these are people who have responded to me before. So
right.
I've sent it to Arlo White. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've sent it to Ian Dark. Ian Dark and I've had conversations back and forth on things. He's actually, answered some questions that I had. Mm-hmm. And I sent it to Roger Bennett, the guy who does the Men in Blazers show. Noted Everton and Chicago Bears fan, who's pretty funny. And then I sent it to Kay Murray, who I don't know if she used to be on beIN Sports. Now she's on ESPN FC. Noted Borough person. We had the same birthday. So these are all people that I've actually had Twitter conversations.
Right.
So they sort of know who I am. I've gotten no response yet from any of them.
So you've mostly gone for American media people, are you saying?
Not necessarily. I mean,
okay.
Well, they're more in American media, I think, than in the UK. I think.
Perhaps. I didn't recognise too many of the names. That was all. But
right.
But yeah, I mean, certainly, there are guys over here. As I say, Michael Bailey would be a good one, I think, because obviously he's well known. He's one of the most prolific writers about Norwich City. I take it you're all familiar with Michael.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
And like I say, I'm sure he'd do it. I mean, he's done a lot of stuff for the trust, and I'm sure he'd be more than happy to do this.
He's a big reason why I have an Athletic subscription.
Yeah, he writes some great stuff for the Athletic.
I'm not real happy Athletic got bought by the New York Times. I'm happy for the people at the Athletic. I'm not happy it's the New York Times.
Yeah, I think they were always going to get flipped.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that was a long-term plan.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure. The plan was to build enough subscribers that they thought there'd be value in there. But the New York Times is, what's their motto? All the news that's fit to print. And then it should say, comma, whether it's true or not, we don't actually care.
Sounds like the Daily Telegraph.
Oh God. God, what was it? Did I pass the Times building? No. Yeah, I did. When I was in New York City last time, I told them they were number one with my finger. So I'm not a fan of the New York Times. The previous time, we were like a hotel right around the corner. I'm like, oh, there's a New York Times. I didn't even. So one thing, if you being in New York City, if you just walk and aren't really like plotting out where you're going beforehand, you'll just go, oh, look what I just found. There's so much of that just walking around, and just finding things and not really knowing. At one time I was there, it was like 2013. What is that St. Patrick's Cathedral I just walked past? Yeah, it is. Oh, and there's a Waldorf Astoria over there. It's just interesting finding things if you don't really have a plan, just running into buildings. So it's kind of interesting. I'm sure it happens in other larger cities that you're.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah, just if you're
I think I saw this movie, Ken. It's National Lampoon's European Vacation. Look, kids, Big Bad Parliament. They kept going by it 16 times.
Yeah, Chevy Chase.
Yeah,
exactly. So I know Mark and Jeff listen to Chris Gorham's broadcast. I haven't synced up. I'm I watch the Peacock, or on whatever it's on online, because they're almost always on Peacock. Sometimes it's on NBC. So they sync up, and I don't. I watch the Peacock, and sometimes I have to suffer through whoever's doing the announcement. These guys know that F and a Coco. Oh my God! I know he played for Norwich, but every time if someone, it's like has a shot on goal and something doesn't work, they're slightly off, or it's a header, he acts as if they're going to be 100% perfect every single time, which is ridiculous. I sort of want to pull up, whiffs and misses from his career. It's like, oh, here's one where you missed. I'm like, it's annoying to me when it's like, oh, they should have done better. All right, guy's leaping in the air and he's heading, hoping that the ball's going to go into goal and hoping that the goalie isn't there. It's just, I find him, and for a while, he hadn't done the last couple, but God, he did like 8 in a row or something. And
it
was so annoying.
Yeah, it was. I found it I don't know if he's that critical of other teams or he feels he can be critical because he's a past Norwich player. I don't know what it is, but it's incredibly annoying.
Yeah, it is. I've come across him a few times because, on the odd occasion that I can't get to an away game and I pick up a stream, it always seems to be a cuckoo on the commentary. And yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Danny Mills is another one. Danny Mills is an ex-Norwich player who just slates us all the time, which I find really frustrating. But
yeah, whoever they had last time, I forgot who it was. One of the guys was Tony. I'm not sure who it was because I missed the beginning. I was
Tony Gale, probably. Was it against West Ham?
West Ham, and then Saturday's match. And they flip around. You never. I missed the very beginning of it because I was doing something upstairs. My wife came down, and the clock that we have upstairs is slower than real time. So when I look at the clock, oh, I'm 3 minutes behind. I always forget that, so I missed the announcers. They weren't as critical. They seemed to be fairer with their how they were describing stuff. They seemed to really not. I wouldn't say have an agenda, but they seemed fairer at describing what was going on. I appreciated hearing that. And then
it's easy to be balanced when you jump out to a 2-0 lead in the first 20 minutes.
Right. But even beforehand, and there was one broadcast. They had a female analyst who was outstanding, and I had to look her up. I forgot who it was. Someone had played for the English team for quite a long time. I would have to look her up. I was like, well, is this a female? I was trying to figure out this, and finally and when they said, at halftime, yes, and here we are with, I'm like, okay, looked her up. She was excellent. She really,
Alex Scott?
It wasn't Alex Scott.
Right.
I know who that is. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I know who that is. I think she's a studio host, but I would have to look it up, whoever it was. And it wasn't when I did the fan zone one of the times, there was 2 women in the studio. It wasn't her, but she was excellent. She really was really well versed and describing everything on a very technical level as someone that really understood what was going on and what they were doing, and explaining it precisely. Oh, that's why. See that tackle here, they did this and that, and that's why. It was. Yeah, I'm not doing a great job, but she did a fantastic job of explaining what was going on and why something was happening or what she thought should. So I haven't heard her again. I'd have to look up the name again, but I thought she really did a fantastic job with it.
The best female pundit, I think, in Britain is a lady called Sue Nichols, who is the coach of the Chelsea women's team. She did quite a lot of co-commentary during the European Championships, and everybody remarked on how good she was at explaining quite difficult, quite complicated technical issues in a way that people could take on board.
I'm gonna see if I can find who this is real quick.
It's gonna bug you now, Ken, isn't it?
No, she was really good.
Mm.
Let's see if I can come up with the name here. There you go.
I do think, just thinking back for a minute about getting some of the local UK guys, the time issue for us becomes, well, we're typically on about 6 or 7 o'clock here local in the evening is when we do this typically, obviously not on a holiday like today. That puts y'all into midnight and beyond. And I know sometimes guys are up, people are up doing things, and sometimes they're not. I mean, I messaged Phil Daly last night somewhere, I don't know, third quarter of the Chiefs game, because he's a Chiefs fan like I am.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, are you up? And he didn't message me back. He didn't DM me until well after I'd gone to bed when he got up, because he just recorded the game and saved it and went from there. But sometimes he's up, sometimes he's not. But you're rolling the dice. Anybody after midnight, I know.
Yeah, I must admit, I tend to turn my phone off halfway through the evening, just have a bit of peace and quiet, and pick everything up the following morning. But
right. But I don't know. Maybe we could do something where we do some Sunday afternoons, especially now that American football's wrapping up. So, Ken's Ravens, my Chiefs. Not so much an issue. Not to bag on the Ravens or anything.
Come on, when you lose 6 games in a row and you go from the number 1 seed out of the playoffs, that's not good.
Yeah, well, I can't say anything until my season's done, so I don't want to jinx anything.
The only one that's listed is Kelly Cates, and I think she may have been in the studio when I.
Yeah, Kelly Cates is Scottish, so I don't think she's Ex England international. But,
yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, she may have been in the studio when I did it, but it was someone else that had a much longer career. Yeah, I'm not picking it up with the playing, and she was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about how the team has actually done 1, 2 out of 3, and 2 out of 3, and what you attribute that to. Like to talk a little bit about midfield, who's in midfield, and then a certain academy product who is that's the subject of a lot of discussion.
I think Saturday was very, very important, because if we are going to avoid relegation, which is still a big ask, we've got to replicate the level of intensity that we had on Saturday, because it was significantly higher than it has been for some weeks, really. The work rate was tremendous. We got stuck into Everton from the off, and they were constantly on the back foot. But yeah, I think the midfield situation was interesting because to some extent Smith's hand has been forced by the injuries. Obviously, Norman is out. McLean had COVID. Gilmore's still not back from his injury. So it was almost a question of who's left standing. But sometimes things happen like that, and they really work, and it did on Saturday. I like Pierre Lees-Manu. I think he's a very, very good footballer. I think he's got a good football brain. He's a big unit. And I've always felt that he could add quite a lot to the midfield if they got the combination right. And playing with Sorensen alongside him, I thought we looked very good simply because the two central midfield players actually showed a lot of discipline. They kept their shape. They won their tackles and they gave the ball to somebody who could play. They didn't try to be more than they are. And that, I think, has been one of the issues with our midfield in the past. I think, although I think Billy Gilmore's a very talented footballer, he tends to play the simple ball all the time. And I think with Kenny McLean, he tries to do too many different things. He wants to be the holding midfield player, but he wants to be the player who's pushing up behind the strikers, and he wants to go wide, and he wants to get in the middle.
And he wants to take shots on goal.
Yeah. And I think sometimes he just tries too hard and tries to do too many things, and as a result, we end up with vacuums in the midfield. What happened on Saturday is that Sorensen and Lees-Manu were very, very disciplined in the sense that they didn't go hearing forward when we got the ball. They just held their position, covered the gaps. And as I said, when they got the ball, generally speaking, they played a straightforward pass, but it was a progressive pass. It wasn't just sideways or backwards. They were getting us up the field. Lees-Manu in particular pinged some really good 20-yard balls to change the direction of the attack. But it's obvious under Smith that we're going more direct. We're not playing 20 passes in front of the back four. We're actually moving the back four around, and we look a better side as a result of it. And I think Ida could just be the key. He got his goal on Saturday, which is obviously going to increase his confidence. But I think he gives us something that we haven't had, which is proper support for Pookie. Mm-hmm. And there are signs that the two of them are actually developing an understanding, which I think could stand us in good stead going forward. And the other thing I like about Ida is that he's quite comfortable coming deep, picking the ball up, and then running at defenders. And defenders hate being run at. It's been so easy for teams to defend against us in the past, particularly under Farker this season, because basically the way we were playing is that we'd move up the field until we met resistance, and then we'd either go backwards or sideways. So the ball we were just playing in front of the back four all the time and not really asking any questions of them. With either running at people and committing them, that is pulling the back four around. And you could see Everton look really uncomfortable on Saturday. They weren't sure whether to go out and challenge or try and pick up a man. And we look much more potent as a result of that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big, fast dude.
Yeah. And he does look as if he's really packed on some muscle as well this season. It looks like he's really hit the gym hard.
I don't know what his height is. You'll give me the metric. I have he's got to be over 6 foot tall. Yeah,
that's right.
Mark can look it up. Mark, how tall is he?
You're already ahead of me. I'm getting there.
Mark's in spite of the fact I have the computer here. You know,
Ida.
in front of me. But he's a
Well, it says he's 190. So on
his weight.
No, centimeters.
Height. Yeah. And the thing is that on Saturday, we won a lot of headers as well when the ball was going long, because when we just had Pookie up front, it was pointless hitting long balls because he's never going to win a header. It's just not his game. But Sargent and Ida won so many headers on Saturday, and if you can win a header, get a flick on, knock it down to one of your own teammates. Again, it's putting pressure on the defense.
Right. And they also seem to track back a lot.
That is the other thing that I like about them, because both of them are more than happy and are very good judges of when they have to drop in and basically reinforce the midfield when we're under pressure. And both of them won good tackles in midfield areas as well.
Almost 6'3".
There you go. Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Under.
Yeah, because I mean, I've talked about where I've seen, like when Sargent was playing well and didn't score a goal, I says, well, he has some of the aspects of Harry Kane, certainly not scoring the goals, but Kane goes back and he defends and he gets the headers on the corners. And sometimes it's like, oh, what's Kane doing? Like Kane's clearing the ball in front of Lloris. The fact that a striker is willing to do that helps them out. And if, Ida and Sargent are willing to go back and help that out and do that, great. I think they have the physical ability and they have the stamina and the want to do it.
Yeah, and they both won defensive headers as well. One will be defending set pieces, and that's an important part of the game too. But one of the things that really pleased me about Saturday was the fact that Sargent got a standing ovation when he was substituted, which has got to be great for the lad's confidence. And I mean, let's be honest, he's had a horrendous time in front of goal. I mean, he's clearly got issues that stem back to that awful miss against Brighton. And people have piled on to him and criticised him. But he's only 21. He works his socks off every game. And I think there's a good player in there. And I think given time and a bit of support, he's going to be a really, really good player for Norwich. So I'm pleased to see him make a big contribution.
Yeah, I agree. I was like, hey, look at that. It's like, and he got the assist, even though it was an own goal. He got the assist, which is nice. He's now on the score sheet.
I still call it a goal in hockey. If that was ice hockey, that would have counted. So no, you bounce it off. You bounce it off the opponent's skate. It goes in. It
was a goal. What the funniest thing is the video that Norwich put out with Chris Gorham's commentary. It's like, we scored a goal. Norwich have actually scored a Premier League goal.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah. But we, just picking up on Mark's point, what we have over here is a thing called the questionable goals panel who adjudicate on these things. And basically the rule of thumb is if you hit a shot and it would have gone in the goal if it hadn't touched the defender, it's your goal. It's yours.
Right.
If it wouldn't have gone in, it's an own goal.
Right.
Yeah, there's no question that's going to be an OG, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I figured it out a while ago. It's like, well, that still was going to go on goal, but it deflected and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, with Ida, I mean, that was a heck of a shot he had against West Ham.
It was a tremendous strike, and he's capable of doing that. The lad has always scored goals throughout his career, and now he's got one. Hopefully, that's the start of something big. But just coming back to what was different on Saturday, I thought we were just so much more physical than we have been. We've looked really lightweight, I think, in previous games, particularly against West Ham, I thought. But we were really tough on Saturday, and there there are some real warriors in that team. I mean, everybody talks about Grant Hanley in that respect because the lad, he's made of granite. He's taking painkilling injections in his shoulder to get him out on the pitch, but he's going through brick walls. Brandon Williams is another one. I mean, one of the great moments on Saturday was when because Brandon Williams had a real tussle with Anthony Gordon, the Everton right winger, and Gordon left a couple on him during the game, a couple of late challenges which didn't get picked up. And early in the second half, Williams nearly put him and the ball in the away section. He just went straight through him. Perfect
down there in the corner. I love that.
Yeah, that was tremendous. And the crowd just went mad, and the crowds love that sort of thing. They love, seeing one of your players steamroller an opponent. But there were a couple of bookings that we picked up. Pookie and Sargent both picked up bookings for quite deliberate professional to stop breakaways.
Pookie's done that before.
Yeah, Pookie's done that because he's been around the block and he knows how these things work. But some of the younger players earlier in the season, they would have just let the player go, and it could have led to a goal. But there's a nice edge of cynicism that's creeping in to the way we play, and I say it's nice because everybody else does it. So if you don't do it, you're at a disadvantage.
Pookie got a little bit of stick for putting on the brakes on that breakaway.
Yeah.
And we were already up 2-0, and I'm thinking, well, if that turns into a 50-50, I could see him picking up a yellow if something happens there, and it's way too early in the game. We're up by 2. Didn't need to. And then he goes and picks up the yellow later, and I'm like, well, there you go. Save it for later rather than picking one up early.
That was a really strange incident, actually, Mark, because, both players went for it. And I think they both at the same moment thought, well, I'm not quite going to get there. And they both stopped. And of course, then, when Pickford stopped, everybody's thinking, well, if Pookie kept going, he'd have scored. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it was a question of, discretion is the better part of valor there.
Yeah, it seemed like they both stopped because they realized we're going to ram into each other.
Yeah.
And I think
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, you sense there's mutual respect amongst many of the players. Even when they clearly foul someone, knock them out. Oh, let me help you up. I'm so sorry that I really smashed you. But the Peacock whoever the analyst was, I forgot, really was criticizing Pookie for not just continuing on. It's like, hey, that would have put it away. That would have been 3-0.
Glad I had him muted.
He's like, why is he stopping? But they were fine. I mean, these guys, I forgot who they were. They were fine. I really thought that was a fair criticism. I didn't fear they were. I wasn't like, oh, shut up. I felt like they were fair and they, were analyzing it, fairly nicely. It's like, okay, there's a big number coming up for extra time. The Nords fans aren't going to be, And I was like, oh, God, was it going to be 8? It was 7. I'm actually pretty good at getting within 1 minute on the extra time for several years. I've been pretty decent with guessing one way or the, it's not that hard to do, like plus or minus 1. I'm always,
It was always going to be a long period of extra time because there've been so many stoppages and so many injuries.
Speaking of injury, Krul looked like he picked up a shoulder. Like he couldn't even take the free kick. Do you know what's happening with him?
No, we don't. We're waiting to hear, but I'm told by people who were behind the goal that Grant Hanley's shouted to the physio he's done the same thing that he did for Holland. Which is when he dislocated his shoulder and he was out for a while. So it's a bit of a worry. I think they're hoping that given a couple of days rest, it'll settle down and maybe he can have an injection. But yeah, Smith was interviewed after the game and was asked about Krul, Williams, and Aarons, all of whom, well, obviously Aarons and Williams had both limped off. In fact, Aarons looked really bad.
Yeah, Aarons looked like he pulled a gluteus muscle. That's he was holding his right rear butt cheek,
Backside.
Whatever. The right side. Yeah.
No, I think what happened is that he got a knee in the backside, and it's to say that it was like the buttock equivalent of a dead leg.
Okay.
And according to Dean Smith after the game, he didn't seem to think it was going to be an issue for Friday.
Okay. That's good, because the way it was holding it, I'm like, oh no, he pulled something back there, and
but Max does this though. I remember there was a game, I think it was last season, where he had to be carried off, and we were thinking, God, has he broken his leg or whatever? And next game he was fine. So he seems to bounce back pretty well. And as far as Williams was concerned, it was just cramp. I mean, the lad had just run himself into the game.
Yeah, that was quite the effort.
Yeah,
from him. So.
He's quite a character. Is Brandon? I think he's endeared himself to the crowd big time. And it was good to see Giannoulis come on and make a contribution as well, because he made a phenomenal block in the last few minutes from close range. And that's the sort of commitment that they've got to produce game after game. They've got to be prepared to put the bodies on the line and grind out results.
Now, on one of the previous on two of the previous podcasts, we had Jonathan Tompkinson's parents, both the mom and the dad. We had the mom, Jackie, on, what was it, the Thanksgiving episode? That was our longest one, because
we went 2 hours.
We had stuff in there. It's like, here's some Thanksgiving questions. What are you thankful for? Like, who's
biggest turkey?
Biggest turkey, favorite side. What was it? Who
biggest ham?
Yeah, biggest
McLean.
Ham. Who's got the? What was the question? Who's got the? What was it? Who's got the swag or something? Who's got the sauce?
The sauce.
Who's got the sauce? Like who was the one the player that you really like? Who's like, who's got the sauce on the team? Everyone's got your energetic, charismatic player or whatever. And then the last question was, which of the items during the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving is your favorite? Have you seen that?
No.
Charlie? Okay. So Charlie, you know what Charlie Brown is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie. So the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving special. So Charlie Brown is faced with the prospect of making a Thanksgiving Day meal for his friends. So Charlie Brown, being whatever 8, only knows how to make one thing. Two things: toast and popcorn. So they have the friends there. Eventually, they have like a real Thanksgiving. So they serve toast, popcorn, pretzel sticks, and
jelly beans.
Jelly beans. So it says, which of those would you choose? I chose popcorn because popcorn is the only one of the 4 that possibly existed in the early 1600s.
Yeah.
Corn existed.
Yeah.
The popcorn may have existed. Jelly beans didn't exist.
No,
Toast didn't exist. No electricity. And pretzel sticks. So it's like, which So basically, they have it's rather humorous, trying to figure out kids doing that than having Snoopy and try to figure out. So basically, they have the meal outside on a ping pong table. They use a ping pong table and they spread it out, then have the meal, which is kind of interesting. It also is interesting because, especially since the 2016 election, people were much more aware of issues with fairness and equity and discrimination and X, Y, and Z. The Peanuts introduced a character named Franklin, who's a black kid.
Yes, I remember that. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So he's part of the celebration, but people started to notice that when they're sitting, he all of a sudden is sitting on one side of the table by himself, which is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, wait a second, what's going on there? So that got a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, come on, we'll have the black kid, but you sit and you'll give you the whole side to yourself. I don't think it was intentional at all, and the idea was to bring a black kid into the comic strip and make them seem as accepted as any of the others. It was a great idea. Charles Schultz, the guy who came up with it, but it was kind of interesting. So
yeah, he was a pretty progressive guy. I can't imagine.
Yeah, a very progressive guy. It was I think the very first strip that Franklin showed up at was a beach scene and swimming with Charlie Brown. So that says a lot about what he was trying to accomplish. So I don't think he intentionally, did it, but looking at it in retrospect, it's like, he's sitting on the table by himself. That's interesting. On that side of the table.
Yeah.
So we did that. So we his mom, Jackie, and then
David.
We had his dad, David. So we learned a lot about Jonathan's progression, where he came from, and then learned a lot about how the whole academy system works, what they do, what they don't do. And his dad mentioned 4 players, to look out for. Well, one of them has already played twice.
Jonathan Rowe
for the club, right? 2 went out on loan. I mentioned this in our New Year's one. Dixon Peters and Abu Kamara are on loan, and then there's another guy who was on the bench. I think he actually scored today. Didn't they play today? I think I think he actually the other guy scored. He was on the bench Saturday.
Right.
Trying to think of who I'm thinking of, but he was on the.
That would be Rowe.
Rowe, but there was someone else. There's like a midfielder.
Okay. I'm trying to think he was on the bench on Saturday.
Not on. Sure. Let me find it.
Well, Flynn Clark got 2. I don't recall his name. And Rowe got the other one today.
Yeah, I know Rowe scored today.
So Flynn Clark and Rowe for today.
I'm looking for
while we're doing that, I mean, certainly we've been just waiting with bated breath to see Jonathan finally get out there on the pitch. It was actually pretty funny to get
Gibbs.
how it. There you go.
Gibbs is the other one.
Gibbs, of course, yeah.
Gibbs is on the bench, right? Gibbs is on the bench. So David, his dad, David goes, yeah, Gibbs is the other one I mentioned. So he mentioned, it's like, it was funny because Jonathan had already been on the bench. He was like, oh, Rowe. Like, oh, you mentioned Rowe. And then, the other 2, he's like, yeah, Rowe, Dixon, Peters, and Kamara scoring all the goals.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, to finish the story, we got the story about, when Jonathan first told his folks he was going to be on the bench for it was Man City, right? Wait.
Palace, I think.
It was when Hanley got hurt.
Yeah, it was when Hanley got hurt.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, Man U. And so, he messages his folks because they're WhatsApp folks and everything. And Dad's response was a little subdued. Mom's was way up there and actually lost something in translation to Dad because of the initials that she used for it. But if you know Jackie, she's an absolute hoot, and I could totally, because I've met them several times because they live over on the other side of the Metroplex from me, and we've watched some games together.
Right.
And she's an absolute hoot. I could totally hear those words coming out of her mouth. So, and she's no, and neither one of them are any slouches as athletes, for that matter. So,
oh no, I mean,
so Jonathan's got some great DNA at work at his benefit.
Yeah, what did she play? Was it
cross
volleyball?
country and basketball
Okay,
at UNT.
like a 5'11", and
Yeah.
she knew her stuff. This is someone that
Yeah.
understood how to coach, all the terminology, the whole
She's still
everything.
in great shape.
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't just like, yeah, Jonathan's my guy, isn't he the best? No, she knows what's going on. I mean, this is someone that clearly understands how to be a coach, the whole process, what's best. She really was just amazing person to talk to, and really her breadth of knowledge and how she's able to use it, and how when they realized when he needed to move on. It wasn't someone telling them, they realize he needs to move on, and here's the reason why. So I was very impressed with just her overall athletic knowledge and intuition, which definitely has to help him, tremendously.
Yeah, I mean that's so important, I think, for the parents of a young footballer coming through, to have that sort of pragmatic attitude, because unfortunately sometimes you get parents who have the attitude, my kid's great, and should always be treated accordingly. I mean, you might recall a few years ago we had a young lad on loan from Tottenham who never really figured. Last name was Edwards.
Marcus Edwards?
Yeah, Marcus Edwards.
Yeah, forward.
Yeah, I think he made maybe a couple of subs appearances, and that was it. But by all accounts, his father would turn up at the training ground and berate the manager for the fact that, why is my son not starting? And those sort of parents are just so counterproductive. It's untrue.
Yeah.
I think I saw him getting like 3 matches right at the end for Tottenham.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
When they were short-staffed.
They sold him to a club in Spain, I think, in the end, didn't they, or Portugal or something like that?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but it was. Yeah. So it was very interesting hearing, the everything that they went through, and how they got him to where he is, and and why.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the more interesting things was that when he was over in England initially, he was connected with a scout from that team down south with tractors on there, and
that one.
and that guy was now employed by Norwich, so that he hooked up with them, and then had to try out. Norwich is like, yeah, can you sign? And then they said when he joined the academy, what does Dad say? There's like 8 or 9 the defenders, and he wasn't initially a defender; he was like a midfielder.
Yeah.
And then he all of a sudden went from being one of 8 or 9 to being the captain. So that's a pretty rapid progression for him.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. Yeah, I mean, it's vitally important for a club like Norwich that we do have a conveyor belt of these lads coming through the system, and it is starting to work quite well. Obviously, we've had people in the past who've come through the youth system. The Murphy twins being the obvious example. Ben Godfrey to an extent, although he didn't come all the way through the youth system, but we signed him as a youth from York City. We need more of those players, because we can't afford to go out and buy players for big money. So we've got to develop our own players. But the setup with the academy is tremendously good. I mean, I've been to Colney, and how it is now at Colney compared to 4 or 5 years ago it's like a different planet. It was 4 or 5 years ago. It was ramshackle. They had porter cabins and what have you. Now it's state of the art. It's fantastic. They've got a pitch there that is the exact replica of the Carrow Road pitch, both in terms of how the grass is made up, because it's pitches these days they use a combination of grass and plastic. The surface is exactly the same as at Carrow Road. The dimensions are exactly the same as at Carrow Road. So players, when they play at Carrow Road for the first time, it's completely familiar to them. And there are half a dozen pitches, artificial pitches, grass pitches, and of course the soccer bot, which has been talked about a lot, which is this incredible computer system that develops players' close skills. There's been a lot of investment in the academy. When people say that we don't spend money, it's we might not spend that much money on players, but in terms of the infrastructure, we've spent a lot, and that will pay dividends down the line, because it's attracting young players to the club. When they see the setup here, it's a club they want to join because they can see it's progressive. And the same with first team signings. There were certainly occasions in the past where prospective signings came to have a look around, saw Colney and said, no, thanks, don't really fancy this. But now, they see it and think, wow, this is great. So it's a big selling point for the club. In fact, I remember having a conversation with Zoe Ward a while ago about this, and she was saying that one of the big impacts of COVID was that it took away the two big selling points that Norwich have in trying to get players to come here and sign. And the two selling points were Colney and the city itself, because it's such a great city. It's a great place to live, and you've only got to look at the number of ex-players who've settled here. Ewan Roberts, Darren Eady, Hux. They've all settled down and brought up their families here, which is great.
Let's not forget, you'll probably have Unel Hernandez want to live there permanently so they can shop at Argo.
Yeah, he made a pretty impressive debut for Birmingham at the weekend. Actually,
good for him. Did he score a goal?
No, I don't think he scored. No, but I saw that Lee Bowyer, the manager, was praising him to the hilt and saying that he thought he'd be a great asset, which is good, because obviously things didn't go that well for him at Middlesbrough.
Well, speaking of that, one of the things when Mark and I did it the New Year's, I had like wishes for the new year, and one of my wishes was bringing new players in / bringing players back on loan, and then the other one was, hey, let's get the youth in, like boing, then Rose already played in two. Now we've seen Dean Smith say, I don't think we're doing anything. I was like, really? Which is kind of surprising, because clearly
I'm watching Andy Reid.
It's not strong enough. Someone's watching Andy Reid.
Right.
That's got to be in Mark's house. So what do you? Honestly, I mean, the club needs something. So the question is, should it be pulling players back from loan, and if so, who? And then what types of players are out there? When I was on the fan zone once, I mentioned that Dermich was tearing it up in Croatia. It's like, you need a striker. Is that a possibility to bring him back?
I don't think so. I don't think you'll see Dermich at.
That's why I said, is that a possibility? I don't know how out of favor he is. I don't know the level of Croatia versus the Premier League. It clearly is not one of the top five.
It's not great, and I think he burnt his boats when he was at City before. I think there were opportunities for him to go, and he decided to sit on his contract. But in terms of bringing players back, I think there are two things really. The first is that, generally speaking, if a player goes to a club on a season-long loan, that's what it is.
Okay.
Sometimes they have a break clause. usually it tends to revolve around how much they've actually played. If they've been there for half the season and haven't got on the pitch, then the club that the player belongs with is probably not going to be very happy about that. There were certainly issues with Chelsea when Gilmore wasn't playing under Farr. So it might not be practical in some cases because obviously we don't know the details of the contracts.
Okay, that's important information that I didn't know. Thanks for because I was like, well, some guys get pulled back and some don't, and I don't know how that works.
It varies, and you'd have to know exactly what was in that particular contract. But generally speaking, season-long loans are season-long loans. But the other issue is, would they actually improve us? And you look at the players that are out on loan, and it's difficult to see that they actually would. In terms of strengthening, there's no question that we could do with strengthening, but realistically, I don't see anything significant happening unless we sell somebody. And if we sell somebody, there's only one person it's going to be. That I don't need to spell that one out, I don't think. I have no idea what's been going on with Todd Campbell this season. There are lots of rumours that have been spread around. Lots of people saying, "Well, I know somebody who knows somebody who knows something." But whatever has been going on, there's a lad who's an England under-21 international, incredibly talented, who's barely made it onto the pitch this season, and when he hasn't performed.
Right.
So, given that his contract runs until the summer, and we have a year's option that we could take up on that contract. But at the end of the day, what's the point of having a player at the club who's not actually contributing and playing? So I would be quite surprised if the club weren't open to offers for Todd in this transfer window. The issue, of course, is that they're not going to get anything like the fee that they would want for him. At one point, the expectation was that Todd and Max, for that matter, would go for similar prices to say Ben Godfrey. But it's difficult to see any way that they'd get anybody to pay that. January is always difficult anyway. Mm-hmm. Clubs tend not to spend a vast amount of money in January. And historically, players who come into a club in January tend not to perform that well. You very often see them not blossoming until the following season when they've had a whole pre-season at the club. And we saw that last time around. We brought Duda in on loan. Now Duda is a top class player. He's a very, very good player. He's a seasoned international, and we expected him to make a big impact, and he didn't yet. Mm-hmm. He's gone now, and he's performing really well away from Norwich, and that sort of thing happens, unfortunately, in January.
Was it Sergi Canos January transfer?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. But I mean, Canos never really did anything at Norwich at all, did he? He was very disappointing. But yeah, unless we sell Todd, I don't really see anything very much happening, which is unfortunate. I mean, I would love to see another defensive midfield player come in, although
sure,
maybe Sorensen and Lise Malou are the answer. With if we can get Norman back in as well. But of course, if you then bring in another midfielder, that means either Sargent or Ida are going to be on the bench. So it's going to be a difficult balancing act going forward, I think.
What you got, Mark?
Nah, just wondering how many cents on the dollar from his peak, potentially for Cantwell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
No idea.
I maybe 30 cents on the dollar versus where he was.
Yeah.
Because he was at 2025.
Oh yeah.
And
Mhm.
I think we'll be very lucky to get 10.
Let's just hope they don't sell him to Newcastle.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
that
the thing is,
around.
Newcastle is stupid enough to pay 20 for him.
That's true.
That's the benefit of it.
And it's not as if Newcastle needs to take out a loan right now.
No, that's right. That's right. But yeah, I mean, obviously, we're watching Newcastle with interest because they're a major, contender for relegation, and we don't want to see them strengthen too much. But at the moment,
and then the difference between the value of the ownership, I don't know, it's enormous.
That's it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much money you've got. You're going to struggle to get top class players to come to a club that could be playing in effectively the second division next season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's got to scare a lot of people off.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, without any question.
But no, I just not to lament too much on Todd. I'm kind of getting the same feeling with him that I think we all were with Daniel Farka there near the end, where it's been great, but something's going on, and until we get Todd's story in the 9th edition of Tales of the City, I don't know what the story is. I'm not in a position to judge. I know people are very frustrated with him. It's, I have a hard time not staying sympathetic to whatever's going on there. But at the same time, we need to do something as a club that's good for the club, and to be fair to Todd, good to Todd.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if he needs a change, he needs a change.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't hang on to him until his value's zero.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean it could work out well for both parties, but I mean all I would say on Todd is that I don't think he's doing himself any favors with all these gnomic utterances that he's coming out with on Instagram and what have you. I don't really think that's helping the situation at all.
As opposed to going around and it's like, hey, I'm surprising you with stopping by your door and giving you a Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Okay,
yeah.
That's good. Oh, look at that. That's cool. Great.
That was brilliant. I think he actually won a lot of people back by doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
But now, of course, we've got these stupid little Instagram messages.
Well, he's still a kid, and it's social media. That's his world, and
absolutely,
yeah. I'm a junior high coach and teacher. They don't get that.
No.
They just don't think that far ahead sometimes.
No, I know what you mean.
Mark, you need to tell Robin the very what's the word I'm looking for, competitive game that your basketball team played the other day. Wasn't that the score?
Game? Yeah, it was 51-5.
Oof.
Yeah, we're horrible.
51-5.
Yeah. And our score out of the 4 teams, because we got a 7th grade and 8th grade A team and a B team. I'm 7th grade B. Ours was actually one of the more competitive because some of the games Argyle put up 80-something to low teens. It's pretty brutal. But we, this is one area where I can relate to Norwich. Don't take that the wrong way, but we play a long game.
Yeah.
We play a long game. Our junior high, and we tell these kids and we tell their parents, we may not get a single win in a season. You may not get a single win throughout your junior high career, but you're going to get wins. I mean, our football teams do horribly. Our high school team wins district. We're getting them ready. It's like minor league baseball. Your minor league baseball team could be in last place 50 games out of first. But if you've got 3 Hall of Famers on it, that team was a success.
Yeah.
If you help build them up, ready for the next level. And that's what we do. That's what a lot of what Norwich does, certainly with, the academy and building up and building from within. But no, we were going up against one of the better operations in all of 4A Texas. Texas goes up to 6A. This is one of the more moneyed districts. They just built a new high school, which means their junior high is now the only junior high in Texas with its own indoor football facility. Full size 100-yard indoor facility. So rainy days, not a worry. There will be more junior highs because you'll see where it's not uncommon for junior highs to move into the old high schools when they build a new high school. There will be other schools in Texas where the high school has an indoor facility up. Certainly my district will do this at some point, I'm sure, because it's our high school's getting up there as well, where I could see our two junior highs merging, go into the high school and then build a new high school, and we'd have our own indoor. Well, great. But
that's amazing.
But we got shellacked. We got absolutely shellacked.
Only 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years, 3 years ago. I'm trying to think. Maryland took their former basketball facility and made it into an indoor practice facility for football, and they totally transformed it. They took the building that was built in like the 50s that I saw plenty of basketball games there, and basically just dug all the way down and made it the indoor practice facility. But then they also totally transformed the building. It wasn't just an athletic thing. There's classrooms. There are entrepreneurial things there, but they didn't have an indoor practice facility. And this is a team that plays in the Big Ten Conference. This is one of the so-called Power 5 conferences in the country, and they didn't have one. And a junior high has one in Texas. That's just kind of ridiculous.
Well, Argyle is insane money. It's up there with South Lake and some of those other districts you might hear about on a national level. I took it as a victory because it was 30 points better than my team did against them last year.
There you go.
But in that game, I only had 5 players. Thank you, COVID. I had nobody on the bench. And none of my guys were starters, so it was.
How did they let you play with only 5?
I started with 6. We pulled one off due to contact tracing after the first quarter.
I thought you needed a minimum of 7 or something like.
No.
I think the NBA is no one cares.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think the NBA needs like 7.
Our eighth grade A team started with 7 Tuesday.
Wow.
And then got down to 6 because one of our starters got 4 fouls very quickly.
That reminds me when I played a Little League game, we had 7 players. And I think we won the game. I believe I played every position in the infield, including made-up positions. I played first. I played between first and second. I played second. I played short, between short and third. And then there was one guy, like the best natural athlete that I knew. He was like the outfielder. So I saw the scorebook afterwards. I was like, why is Bill's position listed as WF? What does that mean? The manager, who I knew very well, goes, that stands for whole field. So I still remember like whole field, so it's just like, we'll just put him in the outfield. He'll cover everything, So somehow I think we won. Yeah. So it's the minimum. So I don't know how.
Yeah. 75% of the earth is covered by water. The rest is covered by your whole fielder.
Okay. Because we're approaching an hour and a half here. Okay. Norwich is 18th, but Burnley is 4 in hand. I don't know. I don't think that's good for Burnley because they're somehow going to have to wind up playing like 4 matches in 11 days.
Yeah, I suppose there are 2 sides to it. Clearly, there's going to be fixture congestion, which isn't going to help them. But of course, we are still in the January window, and they've got money from the sale of wood, which means that they could actually strengthen, which means that they actually get four games that should have already been played, that they'll be able to play with potentially a stronger squad. Whether that actually transpires or not is another thing, because if you're not attracted to go to Newcastle with all their multi-millions, and face a relegation battle, you're not going to go to Burnley. I don't know if, well, I'm sure none of you have been to Burnley, but
no,
I have friends
not.
who have.
Yeah,
I have some local friends who are actually big Burnley fans.
It's northeast of Manchester. Am I correct with that?
Yeah.
Hey, I got that right.
Yeah. It's actually twinned with Mordor. But sorry, Lord of the Rings reference there.
I know nothing about Lord of the Rings.
Did I hear that?
Nothing.
Well, I realised
Nothing.
it just fell flat.
Nothing. I know nothing about Lord of the Rings.
I was thinking it was a really good line, and you just corpsed it completely. But no, I mean, Burnley. Well, it's like, honestly, it's like driving back to the 1950s. It's an awful place. So it's not the most attractive place for players to go at the best of times, and when they're bottom of the league, it's even worse. But we'll have to see what happens on that one.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. All right,
I was going to say, based on our own experiences, I think I'd want to take points over games in hand.
Yeah. Points on the board are always the best thing.
Sure.
We've had games in hand before, and it's never done us any favors.
No, that's true.
Sure, that's why I look at it as they have 4. Like, wow, they're really going to have to. I mean, at some point, it's going to be Burnley's playing again on Tuesday. Burnley's playing again on Wednesday. They're going to have to.
I know they put in for the postponement. Have they gotten it? Do we know?
Yeah, for like tomorrow.
I haven't seen a decision yet. I suspect that the league are probably going to try and put the pressure on them because they are so far behind.
Right.
And there's also an issue as well, I think, given the number of the games that they've had postponed, as to what they're actually doing to try and control COVID within the club, because everybody else seems to have come through the worst of it now. Whereas Burnley it seems to be as bad as it was two weeks ago.
True. It's got to burn itself out through them at some point.
Yeah. Certainly the figures that are being released today suggest that we probably are through the worst here. The number of new cases are dropping, but there's also a suggestion that there are less tests being done. It's a bit like the Trump principle. If you don't
test, you
don't get cases. But the signs are promising that we're definitely on the downward trend.
Okay, now, how many points do you think will be needed to finish 17th?
I think considerably less than some people have been touting recently. I saw 38 mentioned on Twitter earlier today. I don't think it will be anything like
38. That's way too high.
No, that's way high.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think somewhere in the early 30s.
I think it's going to be a record. I've been saying it for a while. I think 30 will do it.
Well, that's right. You've got a situation at the moment where it's almost a 4-team mini league. It's basically us, Newcastle, Burnley, and Watford, and everybody else has a bit of a cushion. But of course, what we know historically is that there's normally at least one club that just performs so poorly in the second half of the season that they get dragged down.
Everton.
Well, Everton is certainly one possibility. Brentford's another one. But in order for that to happen, you've got to have the teams underneath picking up points, and that isn't happening either. So, I think we could actually end up with the 3 relegation teams being 3 of the 4 that are in that mini league, which doesn't leave a lot of room for manoeuvre, really.
That's a good segue. I was going to ask you all your opinions on the increased physicality with Norwich having gone right at Everton and playing like we haven't seen them play in quite some time. So what do you reckon? You think they've got it? They've got a couple of players coming back from injury to work into the lineup. You think they've got what it takes?
Yeah, they have. If it clicks, Jeff, I think that's the thing. I mean, we know Matthias Norman is a quality player. I mean, he looked really, really good before the injury. And although his form tailed off a little bit before he actually had the operation, I think that was because he was playing in quite a lot of pain.
Possibly, yeah.
But I think the two key players going forward for Norwich are Norman and Rashika, because I think both of them are top quality players. Rashika gives us something completely different to what anybody else brings to the team, and I think Norman does as well. So if we can get both of those two fit and keep them fit, then I think we've got a chance. Because when you look at the other teams down there, none of them look that great. I mean, Burnley looked very, very poor, to be honest. And unless Newcastle bring in 2 or 3 more quality players, I think they're going to struggle as well. So, we've got a chance. I'm certainly not going to be hanging my hat on the premise that we are going to get out, but we've got an opportunity. Had we lost on Saturday, I would have pretty much given up, I think. But we've given ourselves an opportunity, and if we can go to Watford and get a result on Friday, then I think really we have got something that we can kick on with, because we've then got Crystal Palace at home, which is winnable, and then we've got 2 that are probably no chance at all, which are Manchester City and Liverpool. But
right.
Yeah, that's true.
That's been said before, Robin, right? I mean, that's been said before.
Yeah. This is. Oh well, they've at least beaten Man City since I've been following. I don't. Have they beaten Liverpool in the past 10 years?
No, I can't remember the last time we beat Liverpool.
Whoa!
It would be a long time ago.
Yeah,
we've got 1-0, right? The 1-0 where Holt scored. That was 2009. Wasn't it 1-0?
No, that was 1-1 at Anfield.
Yeah, at Anfield.
Holt scored a header, didn't he? Got in front of Pepper.
I was saying, since I've been following, we
were 1-0 down at the time. That was the equaliser.
All right. I thought they won that match.
No.
All right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Palace, the Fighting Ted Lassos, because it's the same colors, as my son said, it's the same stadium, but he says I think there's some sort of a deal that when AFC Richmond plays Palace in the series, that Palace always wins. I thought he thinks that's like part of the contractual agreement. Hey, you can use our colors, use our stadium, but you can never beat us on the program.
Yeah. By the way, looking at the clock, guys, I'm going to have to dip out fairly shortly.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap this up here. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, speaking of that, thank you so much for joining us. It's been outstanding. Thanks for the trust extending the invitation to Mark to be part of the board.
Great pleasure speaking with you, Robin.
Yeah, and you, can I just say, from our point of view, I think what you guys are doing over there is absolutely tremendous. I mean,
the upper management,
there are so many fan groups building up around the world, and some of them in the most unexpected places. We're doing a lot of work at the moment for Syrian Canaries, who are desperate for anything that they can get from the club, because they can't buy merchandise because of the blockades and what have you. So we're currently trying to put together some sets of kit to get out to them. But yeah, I mean, the more fan groups there are around the world, the better for the club and for everybody connected with the club. So I'm in awe of what you guys are doing.
It's been a lot of fun getting this off the ground. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, and I hope it continues to grow, and I'm sure it will. So yeah, keep up the good work.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a lot we still want to do. I've got a laundry list of things that a lot of round to it. Get around to doing this, get around to doing that, and try to get it a little more formalized. But we're sitting, I don't know, a hair under 600 right now for all of North and South America.
Yeah, that's good.
Thereabouts, and we have some folks, we count in as, I don't know, allied, folks that have got connections over here but are back over in the UK, and because folks travel back and forth.
Yeah.
But trying to grow it, and hopefully this season hasn't put too many of the newer supporters off of it. So
yeah. But I mean, hopefully you've been involved with our meetings will help, Mark, because it'll certainly mean you'll get a lot more information about what's happening at the club. So looking forward to having you on board for that.
Yeah, whatever he can actually use.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, yeah, there may be some bits that you can't share, but
what we can actually use, and then hopefully he'll leverage that to get us, some more interesting guests. We still want to get some people in the media. We still need to get people from the women's team. Love to get, any one of the 4 women that we sponsor, to join us in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Well, I mean, perhaps
I think they won. Did they play today or yesterday? They won
yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they win? No, they lost. That's what
they did lose.
Some sort of a cup.
They're playing Melbourne, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did know. They lost in some sort of a cup. That's all.
Yeah. But I mean, it may be an idea to get Sarah Greaves, who's our women's football ambassador, on, and maybe get Chardonnay, who's the girl that we sponsor, or maybe one of the girls, as you say, that you sponsor.
We sponsor 2 of the 4 get regular playing time.
Yeah. So, okay, right. Well, thank you very much again for having me. It's been a
thank you. It's been a pleasure. So this wraps up AmeriCanaries Podcast number 11. And for those of you who are
11, it's hard to believe it's been 11.
Yeah, it's 11. Hey, that's what it's a new thing, number. I think it's 11 or yeah. So we're getting there, and we have for a while we had more podcasts in Norwich at points. Now it's the other way around. So, which is good. We hope that continues. We hope that the number of points, is always more than our number of podcasts in a season. That, is hopefully, what we're looking for, unless we do this weekly. It's sort of like a bi-weekly ad hoc. Okay. So thank you very much. And this wraps up the podcast. And hopefully in the future, we'll have some more interesting guests from the media, from, whoever. So thank you very much for listening.